Welcome to The Follow-Up, a podcast by Coram Deo Church. In this podcast, we break down the truths of Sunday and make them applicable for your everyday life.
Hi.
We have Becca Wilcox here.
Here I am.
Yay. We like to add new people to this podcast. So if you are interested, come join us. Come join us. We love to hear more voices talk about the truths of Sunday and how they're applicable. What is it, Tuesday? Tuesday morning.
I think so. It's
9:36.
It's a holiday Tuesday, so who knows what day it is.
I don't know. So we are recapping Sunday's message, which was Psalm 129.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go ahead and read it for us.
Okay.
Psalm 129. Greatly have they afflicted me from my youth. Let Israel now say, greatly have they afflicted me from my youth, yet they have not prevailed against me. The plowers plowed upon my back. They made long their furrows. The Lord is righteous. He has cut the cords of the wicked. May all who hate Zion be put to shame and turn backward. Let them be like grass on the housetops, which withers before it grows up, with which the reaper does not fill his hand, nor the binder sheaves his arms, nor do those who pass by say, the blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord.
It's a good one.
That is a good one. Man.
I was wondering at the beginning exactly where we would go with that.
Uh-huh.
But I like the turn. Not the turn, but I like the direction that Billy took.
Yeah.
Pulling that out of there. Because they weren't necessarily, like he talked about, wishing curses on their enemies. It was more about their own perseverance.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And they're singing this like as they travel.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a good theme of all of these Psalms of Ascent are remembering.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where have we come? Where are we going? Mm-hmm. And like, who has God been this whole time?
I think Billy called it like a road trip soundtrack or something like that.
How cute was that?
Yeah, I think that was very applicable to just explain some of the context of these Psalms along their journey.
Yeah, I remember he said, because he's like, there's been some emo songs, there's been some happy songs. Like, that's really funny the way he put that.
Yeah.
One of his first points is God enables the perseverance of his people. And what is that like, maybe in your own life, Becca, in my own life, what is that like when we try to like muster up our own strength and try to persevere? Because that, like you said, that this is about the perseverance of God and him preserving his people. Mm-hmm. But far too often, more times than not, I try to just pull myself up by my own bootstraps. Mm-hmm. Have you ever done that before?
Absolutely. One thing that Billy said that I wrote down was perseverance is not a result of our determination. It is the result of God's faithfulness. If you think about, so later on in the sermon and the message, he had a great analogy that I love that I'm sure we'll get to, having to do with the gym.
Yeah.
But if you think about January, that first week in January, there's gym specials, athletic clothes are on sale. Everyone is determined. This is going to be the year that I lose all the weight. This is going to be the year that I get healthy. This is going to be it. And by February, the gyms are empty again.
It's true.
And it's human nature to have some motivation, but motivation goes away.
Yeah.
And so that happens to me all the time. I get motivated. Something bothers me enough that I want to actually do something about it.
Yeah.
But generally at the first sign of true trouble, that motivation is gone.
I think it's for me when I lose sight of like the true goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now in my own life, I feel like by 2 p.m., I'm so motivated. All right, after bedtime. Mm-hmm. I got a toddler. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, I'm just like, all right, he's napping now. Like, I can do all this stuff. I can get all this stuff done. And after bedtime, 7:30 at night, I'm going to do this, this, and this.
Right.
No, I'm asleep by 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just like in bed. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, where did that motivation go? Because it is zapped completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, but it's like, oftentimes it has to be like what my focus is on.
True.
And is it for my own selfish gain? Is it for my own comfort? And am I really motivated to clean my house because someone's coming over in like 2 hours and I'm going to clean my house? Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
There's like motive and drive behind our own perseverance.
Right. Which is another reason why it cannot last, because it comes out, what he's talking about, that true perseverance is a result of God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
And only his faithfulness is what can last until the end of the age. We just can't. Human beings, there's only so far that the strength of our flesh can go before it fades out. Yeah. Before we're asleep by 8:30, even though we had
nothing wrong with that.
That actually sounds really nice right now. But there's just only so much that we can do. And there's so much freedom in that, to think about, the bulk of this message, he talked about afflictions, and that afflictions having a purpose. And there's freedom in that. Not having to constantly muster up your own strength, but by leaning on God's strength, it can actually last.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. The other note I made is what Billy said, is our trials are no longer something to be endured with your own teeth gritted and your heart heavy. They are opportunities to say to the world that Jesus is alive. Mm-hmm. To really fight against, like Job, his friends, his wife were like, just give up, dude. Just give up. But there was deeper hope. And our hope, Job didn't even know the risen king, but the tomb is empty, and we know that. Mm-hmm. Easter, I feel like we said this a lot at Coram Deo, was like, Easter Sunday is great, but the hope of Easter Sunday will make a difference in July.
Right.
Right.
It's not just for that. It's kind of like we talk about Coram Deo's name.
Yeah.
The church isn't just Sunday morning, but we live every moment before the face of God. And it's the same thing with trials, that there's a purpose to be able to show people how we react to trials, how we can persevere, because it's beyond us. It's bigger than us. I'll be honest, I struggle with that. Mm-hmm. Trials that come my way, that specific thing he said about with your teeth gritted. I know that feeling.
Me too.
And that faith of like, if I can just get through this to the next step, then I'll be okay. If I can just, I did this in June, and knowing that I had July off, I was like, if I can just make it to the end of June.
Yep.
Not that it was too hard, but I was ready for a vacation.
Totally.
It was a trial in my life.
Totally.
But if I could just take a step back and look at, rather than if I could just make it to June, make it to July, see it as an opportunity to share the gospel, to live the gospel, to allow the gospel to affect my life and therefore affect others. It's just a change of perspective.
Yes, that focus on what our eyes are set on. And for me, that gritted teeth, that reminds me of anytime Billy and I have a marital spat, maybe we should call it.
Once a year.
Well, just, maybe once a year. More than not, he's the one that apologized first, and I'm like, I'm sorry too, but I'm still a little heated. Mm-hmm. It's like the posture of my heart. And if my focus and my goal was knowing that Christ is risen, that I have been so completely redeemed and forgiven, that forgiveness should be easy for me to share with other people. And I can have self-control, and I can have peace, and I can have joy, instead of that gritted teeth, like, ugh,
yeah,
I have to apologize too. It's like, no, we get to reconcile. Like, I can set my pride down. Because even trials can be huge, 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 or it could be how you respond when someone does cut you off.
Yeah. There and everything in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really depends on how your day's going and what you've got. I mean, the enemy can attack us in every shape and form.
Right.
He wants to destroy us. And so if that's destroying us by a family member being ill, or if that's to destroy us by an argument with our husbands,
yes,
he's in it. He wants to destroy us. And so everyone's trials look different. Absolutely. And I think one thing that this made me think of listening to that, after that quote, I remember sitting there on Sunday and thinking, so how do we maintain that perspective? How do we maintain this view of trials as opportunities rather than bumps in the road? And one thing that came to my mind, although I don't think there's just one singular answer, but the value of community.
Yes.
Surrounding yourself with people who can help align that perspective of like, man, what you're going through right now is awful.
Yeah.
I cannot fix it for you, but I am here with you, and I can remind you of God's goodness. And I think that's key, man. Like when we walk through life alone, or these moments alone, or maybe we feel too ashamed to share what those trials may be that we're going through.
Right.
The more we hide and the more that's in darkness, the harder it is to keep that perspective.
I think that's when we have those blinders on, that we can't see almost reality sometimes, right? What's true, what's not true, what's true about me, what's true about you.
Yeah.
We can just get lost in our own thought. But I really like how you said bring to light. Just let the light shine on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in speaking of opportunity, you can't share an opportunity that you're not willing to share the beginning of. You can't walk through a trial and turn it into an opportunity if you want to keep it to yourself. And that's really the point of this, that it's an opportunity to show people the gospel, people, remind people that Jesus is alive. And I'm a huge fan, as you know, of sharing what you're going through with the purpose of bringing it to light and putting that perspective to it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really, really good. Billy reminded us another way to continue to how do we let our trials, how do we lean on the perseverance of God rather than ourselves, is to dwell on the promises of God. I didn't know this, but he said there are over 8,000 promises in the Bible, 7,000 or so in the Old Testament, 1,000 in the New. And I was just wondering, what are some promises your go-to verses, promises that like when you're in it, or maybe not in the moment, because that is really hard. But like, do you have those promises that you have like clung to in like deep dark times, or even just get to July, like I want to be done with my job,
Yeah. My go-to, all my life, I have struggled with fear. So fear of what if, fear of what other people think, fear of if I do something wrong, what's going to happen. So not necessarily fear as in like the boogeyman or scared of the dark, but fear of the unknown. And especially how people see me.
Sure.
And so 2 Timothy 1:7 is the verse that I just go to all the time.
I read that today.
There you go. Like, God does not give us a spirit of fear. When I feel that is not from the Lord, but of power and of love and of self-control or self-discipline. And his promise is, what I hear in that, his promise for me is that when I feel that fear, baby girl, that is not from me.
Yeah.
I want to give you power, love, and self-discipline. That is the spirit you should have. And so when I feel that unknown or in those trials of like, what's going to happen?
Terrifying.
What if we don't get through this?
Yeah.
What if, with a marital spat, what if he's mad at me for days?
Yeah.
What if I said something that really hurt him? What if I make a mistake with my children and mess them up?
At your job. Don't you hate messing up at work?
Yes.
I hate
Yes. What are
up.
they going to think of me? Things like that. So when those what ifs come into play, that's the promise I really rely on.
That's really good.
That spirit is not from him. How about you?
Yeah. At the end of 2019, I feel like God revealed to me like this mind shift that I could take, because I get so stuck in a downward spiral of what if, exactly like you said. Mine are a little different, the fears, but I struggle a lot with fear and anxiety, and it's what if this, and it just goes down. And I feel like God helped me to stop thinking so much about what if and what is. Like what if, but like what is true.
Yes.
And it's a grounding technique for myself. When you can ground, you're like, you and I have talked about this before. What can I touch? What can I see? What can I feel? Like what is actually true, but mainly what is true about God himself.
Yes.
And for me, when I was thinking about the promises of God, I think about Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. For I am the Lord your God. I will be with you wherever you go. Mm-hmm. And I actually read that the day I found out I was pregnant with Samuel. Mm-hmm. It was just in my CBR journal to read, was just starting Joshua. Mm-hmm. Because we had struggled with a little bit of infertility and loss in the past, and seeing that positive plus sign that I've longed for on a pregnancy test was joyful, but like utterly terrifying. Mm-hmm. Completely terrifying.
Yeah.
So then I just sat down, read my Bible, and I read Joshua 1. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Because Moses had just died, and God was like, all right, you're up. Mm-hmm. You're up, Josh. Like, you're about to lead all these people.
Yeah.
Through a lot of stuff. But like, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. And it's not in his own might. It's in God.
Right.
I will be with you wherever you go. And so I had a lot of peace. And that didn't mean that I didn't have lots of fear and anxiety the rest of my pregnancy, because I did. But it was just a coming back to. He's going to be with me. Mm-hmm. If we have this baby, if we don't, wherever I go.
Right.
He can make me strong. He can make me courageous. It is just like a refocus.
Yeah.
Yep. That one. And just, I will never leave you or forsake you. Things like that.
Yeah.
Things like that really help ground me.
Yeah. I love how you mention coming back to the truth.
Yeah.
Coming back to the truth. And I remember hearing a sermon once years ago, kind of at the beginning of my own personal walk with Jesus. He talked about knowing the truth, and how do you know the truth? The truth is in God's word. Mm. And that's one reason why it is so important for us as believers to be reading scripture, even those days where we feel like, I didn't get anything out of this, because I don't know about you. I have days that way.
Yes,
like,
yes.
I just read the story and I don't know why, but I read it. But then there's other times in which, reciting those scriptures to ourselves, reciting those scriptures to each other is the way that we can remember that truth. And that the verse that I mentioned too is the same kind of thing. It's separating truth from lies. What is a lie from the enemy? What is the truth that I can replace that lie with? Right. It's an exercise I do with Bailey when she's afraid of something. My daughter is 7. I say, that's a lie. Let's take that lie out and let's replace it with truth. That's good. Truth is that you're safe.
Yeah.
The truth is that the lightning probably won't hit the house. The other night, she didn't want to go to sleep because it was thundering and she was afraid that lightning was going to hit the house. That was her specific fear. So we even literally talked about the likelihood of that and just trying to put that truth into her mind to dispel that fear and that. Yeah. So knowing those promises,
what is true,
help us to remember that truth.
Absolutely. And I also think sometimes we read scripture not knowing why or how in the moment, but in the future. Mm-hmm. It's like we're just training. Mm-hmm. We're training ourselves and our bodies and that discipline, that self-discipline you were talking about. And I think prayer can be similar to that. And that was one of Billy's kind of next point, is taking prayer seriously, because that's where you talked about, are these people cursing? People that are their enemies? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know. I like how he explained about the housetops. Mm-hmm. When I read this, I was like, that's odd. Like, that's like, why is that in there about their roofs growing grass? Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that, in good season, in good weather, then that grass would grow up and you would be able to use it. And it's like, no, don't even let them prosper. Like, don't even let them. I just didn't know that. So I'm thankful Billy explained what that meant about the grass on the housetops. Yeah. But Billy says that the prayer of the psalm does seem like a curse, but we're not to curse our enemies. Mm-hmm. But we are to pray against the evil in this world. And we are to be praying for God to break the chains of like addiction and oppression. Like he brought Ephesians 6 and praying the armor of God, and that we are not fighting against like literal people, enemies, but we are going to war against the powers and principalities of this world and the evil. And it's the kingdom of light, God's kingdom, against the kingdom of darkness.
Absolutely.
Are we taking that seriously? And are we praying? Are we coming alongside people?
Mm-hmm.
Are we praying for addiction all across Burke County to be broken? Because it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in different forms, substance abuse or pornography or addiction to anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to that, I think it's easy, especially for those of us who have been raised in the church and maybe raised with some religious baggage, to see the actions that people do and be judgmental. Yeah. Honestly, forgetting that sin is sin, and my hidden behind closed doors sin is just as bad as the people that I'm judging that I see do X, Y, and Z.
Theirs is out in the open.
Exactly. And I think that's something that I've personally wrestled with, remembering that. And I've gotten into several situations where people have made me angry, or I'm just kind of disgusted with what they do. And I have to remind myself, we all have to remind ourselves that sin is sin. And it's our ultimate enemy is greater than that one person who's making certain choices or walking through certain trials and issues. And that's what we're praying against.
Yeah.
We're not praying against people. We're actually praying for them.
Yes.
When we're praying against the, like you said, addiction. We are not against the addict. We are for the addict because Jesus is for the addict.
That is a great
God is
point.
for the addict. We are against addiction.
Yeah.
We are against
those chains. Yeah.
We stand to be chain breakers.
Yeah.
Not people breakers.
Ooh, I just got chills.
And that's just, and I think that personally for me, the way that I can remember that is to remember what I have done, the chains that I have that
freed.
people have helped me break because they were willing to pray for me rather than shun me.
Yeah.
And I think we have such a cool opportunity and like you said, taking that seriously to stand on the behalf of people we know or brothers and sisters or people we don't even know to stand in God's truth.
Yeah. I think that could almost be a gift that we get to do that for people.
Absolutely.
Man.
Yeah.
Man, that's good. We are not, what did you say? We're chain breakers, not people breakers.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, because if you think, when Jesus met the woman at the well, he go and sin no more. Not, he was against her sin, but for her.
Absolutely.
He showed up in a place where she came to the well in the middle of the day because really she didn't want anyone to see her. Yeah. And I believe that in that moment when he saw her, she was able to be free. And I think we have that opportunity because, and this is a great reminder of that when Billy talks about perseverance, is an opportunity to show that Christ has risen, to show that we have freedom. We have an opportunity to see people, for who they are as in God's image, not for what they've done.
Absolutely, and I love that woman at the well. I was just reading a study through that, and this study pointed out something that I've never seen before. Is that he said, "No, I know living water that you'll never thirst again from." And she was like, "Oh, give that to me." And so after their conversation, she leaves her jar or whatever container she had there. She came to get water and she got the living water and she left with it, but she didn't leave with like physical water. Like she just like left her jar and ran to tell everyone that she knew who she has met.
Yeah.
Like so that is like a picture of her like leaving her old life.
Yes.
And going and living and drinking from the well that never runs dry.
Yeah. And you see her response is to run and just tell. And man, we we, not just you and I, we collectively as a church, we are the woman at the well.
Yeah.
And we have this super cool opportunity to leave our old jar and run and share the living water with the people of our neighborhoods and Burke County and the world.
Absolutely.
And praying for them and aligning our minds with the truth through prayer, through reading scripture, through community is how we do that.
Absolutely. And I love, you mentioned this at the very, very beginning, is that analogy at the end about the weightlifting. Because you mentioned prayer, community, reading your word. Those are all like exercises, right? It's if you like get up tomorrow and you're like, I'm running a half marathon, but I haven't trained for it, you're not gonna be able to do it. You're not gonna make it very far. And even if you, like we've been talking about, have that in your mind, I'm gonna do this, like physically you really can't.
Right.
You know? And so this idea, Billy shared this this analogy of if you go to the gym with a trainer or with someone else and they do place this weight on your back to deadlift or whatever, they're with you and they're there to help you and train you and strengthen. It's going to hurt, but they're there with you to make you and develop you into a stronger version of yourself.
Yes.
And then the opposite of what if someone just like chucked this giant weight at you? Their goal is to crush you.
Right.
It's like having that perspective of who God is. He is that gentle trainer or friend that is like right there with you, that ultimately can carry the load by himself, but he wants to carry it with you. Like he wants to invite you in to something greater and better. And Satan just wants to crush us with this weight.
Yes.
Billy said sometimes a trial can be the exact same thing. Like God can be allowing something in your life to feel extremely heavy, but to know that he is right there and he is calling you, drawing you into himself to develop you and make you stronger. It might hurt, and then Satan wants to use that same trial to crush you.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's all about perspective. I love in that analogy that phrase, a burden with a purpose. And I've always loved the analogy of weightlifting and exercise.
Because you like to weightlift.
I do. You might not be able to tell looking at me, but I do. I do enjoy getting in the gym and picking up heavy things.
Yeah.
And the whole analogy behind it is that literally when you're picking up a weight, it tears muscle fibers. And then in the recovery, they build back stronger. And so that burden with a purpose is the best way to really look at our trials of like, you know, God is not out to get us.
Right.
Satan is. God is not out to get us. He is good. He is for our good. He is for our purpose and our growth.
Yes.
And so seeing trials as like, hey, my muscle fibers are tearing right now. They are tearing. What am I going to do about it? And to know that through that, eventually with God's timing, leaning on him, we can build back even stronger.
Absolutely.
Through recovery, through community, through prayer, through reading his word, through that perspective, that burden with a purpose. But you're right, at the same time, it is very easy to see trials as those plates just being hurled at our heads.
Yeah.
But we do have both. I mean, we have Satan hurling weights at us left and right. But it's really on us how we choose to see that and how we remind ourselves and stepping out of the way of those weights being hurled at us and digging in deep to the burden with a purpose.
Yeah, and even allowing other people to bear that with us, right? Like, this is heavy. Let me come alongside and carry it with you a little bit.
Yeah. Like when you see people who are really serious about weightlifting in the gym, not me, but people who, you know, are maybe doing some sort of press or, you know, lift of some way where they have a spotter.
Yeah.
The person who is right there in case they drop the weight, who comes in and they're not lifting the weight for them, but they are there as support. And that's just another beautiful picture of what community can be. Like, let me shoulder this weight with you. It's your weight to carry, but I am here.
But I'm here. I got your
back.
back.
You are not alone. I got your back. Yeah.
Yeah, because that is the perfect image of who Jesus is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Becca.
Yeah. I loved this week, and I love being here.
Yeah.
Hanging out with my friend, chatting about Jesus, how good God is.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very good to think about the sermon throughout the week.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. How it applies.
Yeah. Thanks for helping me think about that.
Thanks again for listening to the follow-up. To learn more about Coram Deo Church, check us out on social media at Coram Deo NC or our website, coramdeonc.com. To listen to more of our podcasts, you can find them anywhere you find podcasts. Just look up Coram Deo Church, Morganton, North Carolina. Thanks for listening, everyone.
That was the wrong button.
I don't know which one it is. Do you?
Mm-mm. But that's kind of fun.